Hello and welcome to my cake kitchen. My name is Gladys. I'm a baker and cake artist. Forget all of the steam out here. We'll get to the steam in a minute. But if it's your first time chancing onto this channel, hello and welcome here. Over here, I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. I also create baking tutorials live, bringing you all the action about cake subjects, buttercream, and all the stuff in between. And today we're on a buttercream marathon. So just before this stream, we had a stream where I talked you through my American buttercream, which has been made and is left to sit. So right here, this steam is caused by the fire underneath my my steaming eggs here that is going to be made into French buttercream. Now, I have made French buttercream on this channel a few times. In fact, you'll find all that on the channel homepage, edited long form videos. And I think live, I don't know, this is, okay, let's embrace this action right here. Okay, on a serious note, I have made French buttercream on this channel a few times, all of which I'll link in the description box for you. However, you will notice that French buttercream is originally a different process. It is made from egg whites, where the egg whites are whisked and sugar syrup, hot sugar syrup is added. It is whipped to a ribbon stage and then the butter is added. It is part of your European style Italian and Swiss meringue buttercreams that are derived for the addition to cakes. It's great tasting, it is smooth, it has a creamy and richer tasting mouthfeel to it compared to its other counterparts, which is Italian or Swiss buttercream. However, it is one of the most unstable buttercreams. Please don't optimize this buttercream for covering your cake on a sunny day because the cake will collapse, okay? French buttercream is great, but it's not very stable. With that said, I have adapted this recipe. I'm sure I'm not the only person, but the moment I first saw French buttercream and how it is made, I knew that I wasn't going to derive the original process simply because raw eggs make me queasy. And I don't care how scientifically we can justify adding the syrup. It's still raw eggs and I don't want nothing to do with that. So as a result, I tend to boil my eggs on a bain-marie. This is what you call the double boiler method, where you employ steam to steadily cook something without overcooking it vigorously. Over here, we know eggs are very delicate, and if I were to cook the eggs in with direct heat, we'll probably end up with scrambled eggs than what we really need. We don't need scrambled eggs over here. So to be able to cook the eggs to a temperature of 165 degrees C, which is about 73 degree F, where the bacteria is not present and the eggs are safe to eat, I have to cook it over a bain-marie, which is the double boiler. So the steam you see is because there's water underneath this bowl, and the steam from the water underneath is what is warming this heat-proof bowl, thereby slowly and steadily cooking the eggs to an appropriate temperature. A few things you want to know about this particular recipe you're looking here. Whereas originally French buttercream is derived from egg yolks and the process of adding sugar syrup, I have since found during research, and there are a ton of recipes here, that you can actually derive it, especially if you're using this method, you can derive it by using exclusively egg yolks. You can use a mix of both egg yolks and whole eggs, and you can use just whole eggs. So today I am using just whole eggs, but the recipes I have on the channel, I think I have derived from egg yolks. I will check and I'll link all of that for you. So today we are making French buttercream using whole eggs. We have about 350 grams of eggs here to 350 grams of sugar. I also find that it is so adaptable that you can also reduce and increase the amount of sugar. But to maintain some sort of balance, I am using the 1-to-1 ratio of ingredients. So we have 350 grams of sugar to the same quantity of eggs. Now, this is meant to boil and cook the eggs steadily until you get to a safe temperature of 165 where you know that the eggs are not going to have bacteria present. But something you want to know also in the process is, whilst you are cooking the eggs slowly to come to a steady temperature, the warmth and the moisture liquid in the eggs is also melting the sugar. So you'll end up with a syrup looking consistency. Much of this type of buttercream requires on visual cues, having understanding of what you are observing. And I noticed that you're in the chat and you need me. Hello there. It's a pleasure to have you. Good afternoon from my home kitchen right here in England. It's a pleasure. I never take it for granted that you are here and you probably want to interact with me. If you have questions, leave them in the chat. I will get back to you. I just want to be able to deliver the information in a way that is useful, not just for you who is in the chat, but also for the replay audience, because most people are not going to be able to join us. And I make this video with the intention that there is somebody else who may chance onto this video and might derive some value from it. So when I'm delivering the information, I want to be able to do that separately and then dedicate some time to talk to you. But if it's your first time you're seeing my face over here, I am Gladys. Hello there. It's a pleasure to have you. Let's go back to talking French buttercream. So a few things here. I'm making this French buttercream using whole eggs. I'm cooking the eggs over a steady steam to up to about 165 degrees C, or 107 or 72, 73 degree F. I'm no scientist, but if you can do the conversion, leave it in the chat for us. A few things you want to note. You want to make sure that when the bowl you're using is heat proof. It's glass, but it is tampered heat proof glass, which is over here. You can actually cook this using the mixer bowl. I try not to use the mixer bowl, the simple reason being because I'm going to transfer this to whisk, and the whisking is to encourage a cooling process where you cool the eggs down whilst changing the consistency and appearance of it. I feel like if I use the bowl will be hot anyway. So I try to manage how cool or hot the bowl is likely to be by not using the bowl at all. But then I will be transferring from the heat-proof bowl into my mixing bowl. That is just like something I do preferably. But you can actually cook the bowl, use your mixing bowl over the heat. I also find that the base of the bowl, because it's narrow, can sit in the hot water. What you do not want is the bowl sitting over the hot water, because when that happens, there is direct heat contact with your eggs and it will begin to form a scrambled egg feeling on the side of the bowl. You don't want that. So you want to make sure that there is enough water where the bowl doesn't sit over the water. This bowl here is hanging over this saucepan, and the water, let me just find something so I don't burn. The water, if you were looking, if I had an upper shot for you to see, the water is somewhere here, you know, somewhere here. So sort of, if you divided this saucepan into 3 parts, the water only occupies a third of the part, and then the middle portion is hollow, and then the bowl sits. Because the bowl is also wide, it is not sitting right into the saucepan. So that is something to note, because any more heat than you need, you're going to cook the eggs vigorously. Also, you want to be able to keep stirring. And a visual cue to observe is when you start with the eggs, it will look rather, what's the word I'm looking for? It's escaped me, but there's tension when you're trying to stir into it, you know. But the more the eggs are cooking, the lighter the consistency. It will look more syrupy, and you lose the stretch and, what's the word? Oh, I've been talking for the last, more than an hour now. So if I miss my words, forgive me. But I'm going to get into the chat and I'm going to talk to you. But I have to keep an eye on this so we do not overcook the eggs. Okay? We have this here. And for observing the amount of heat here, I have sort of a battery powered infrared thermometer. And this measures, oh, actually, this is measured more than I need it to be. Oh, I need it in Celsius. Yeah, we are at 66 degrees C now. We need it to be 72, 73 degrees C. So it's ranging at 71 now. Normally, you know what? It's 74. So perhaps it's good time to take it off. In the past, I have been able to dip my finger in the syrup to be able to tell, but I realize sensitivity to heat varies. So that is not a guide I am recommending. That is a guide that I have derived from what? Experience of doing it. But because my hands are probably in hot water all the time, my sensitivity to heat may be different from you. So if I told you to dip your hand in it to check for the temperature, I would be lying to you. So perhaps get yourself a thermometer of some kind. A candy thermometer will do a great job. Just get a thermometer that will derive the temperature better for you. But saying that, if you were to dip your finger in it, you can tell that at the start, dipping your finger, you would feel some gritty texture on your fingertips because the sugar is still like not dissolved. But at the end of the process, at 73 degrees C, you have almost, you have this slimy feel with no gritty texture to it. And that is exactly what you need. So I'm going to take that off here. And I'm going to be super careful here because obviously we're dealing with hot stuff. I'm going to move that across to the back. And unplug this, our friend over here. And move that slowly away. Okay, that is safely out of place. Now, the next thing we want to do is get our mixing bowl. And in the mixing bowl, you want to make sure that you don't have anything in there. The thing with French buttercream is that it is pretty straightforward and it is very forgiving as well as a recipe. It's unlike Swiss or Italian, where you have to be super, super, super pedantic and observe the processes diligently. French buttercream, I mean, the yolk are in themselves, they contain fat anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But you just want to make sure that you are doing most things or everything right as to guarantee a good taste and mouthfeel. Right. I like this mixer, but I have to almost like feel like I'm having a fight with it. Okay, there you go. Now I'm gonna whisk this on high. The entire process of the whisking is about 15 minutes at 5-minute intervals. But the point is to whisk it to the point where the volume will increase, the consistency will change. You're looking for a ribbon-like texture. But I will show you what the visual cues of that when we get there. But I'm going to start whipping that for 5 minutes and then we'll stop and look at it. And whilst that is going, I'm just going to wash my hands and get in the chat and see what you've got to say to me. We are trying to have a conversation whilst this noisy contraption. Miss T, it's okay. Miss T, where are you joining us from? Thank you. I can feel your feistiness in the chat. Thank you. We appreciate you. You know, so we were talking about French buttercream and whisking the eggs. Clearly, the consistency has changed, and this is what you call the ribbon stage. It is looking all, can we tell, right? But when I touch the bowl is not cool at all. So we are still going to keep it whisking until we can feel attached to the bowl and it's cool. The reason being, whilst we've got the consistency of the eggs looking the way we want it, if the bowl is not cool and we dump the butter in there, we're going to break the structure of the butter because it's just going to melt and it will look like a hot mess, essentially. So What we want to do is to make sure we get the consistency right, but not just the consistency. The bowl is cool so that when the butter is added, the butter can keep form whilst it is changing form in the mixing process. This is what you call the process of emulsification, because emulsion is when two things don't mix naturally in their natural forms. If we added eggs to butter by themselves, they won't mix, but if we are able to change their forms slightly with an emulsifier, which is a holding or a binding ingredient, it will then hold the two together. So eggs have emulsifiers in them, and then the butter also does. So this comes together greatly. But we want to be able to observe the heat in the bowl and make sure that we are not melting our butter. Whilst this is going, I think it's also important for us to talk about the consistency of butter. And if it's your first time you're joining us, we have already had a whole conversation about the kind of butter we need for our buttercream. That is in a previous live session here when we were making our American buttercream, which is right behind me. It is the stream right before this one. So you want to go back and check that if you're a baker. It is packed with useful information to help you get American buttercream the right way. We've also discussed some things that are out of your control that you can't get rid of because they are inherent to American buttercream. In that video, we talked about the consistency of butter we need, and I even did a test by spreading the butter on a slice of bread just to show you how spreadable we want the butter. The thing with French buttercream though is that we don't need the butter to be too spreadable. We don't want the butter to be firm. We want it at room temperature, soft enough that when you dip a finger in, you can get a dent in it without the butter falling apart. But unlike some other buttercreams, we really don't want this to be too spreadable because we need that to hold form when it is still mixing into the eggs. Plus, the eggs, even if it becomes cool, still have some warmth to it. So we want to make sure that the butter can withstand itself when it's introduced into the eggs without melting completely into that. So that is something to note. And just as a little demonstration, I mean, this butter has been sat here since last night, and then this morning I chopped it up slightly. So the consistency we're looking at is just spreadable enough, but it has some firmness to it. So if you dip your finger in it and you can hold form, you make sure that you don't have an oily film sitting on it, and it's not too soft that if I dip this knife in, it just goes. Like the knife is gone in and it's come out clean, and that's because it's firm. Because if it was too soft and I dipped the knife in, you will have like clumps of butter on the knife. So that's just something for you to note. If you have questions about buttercream, just let me know and I will answer them. In the meantime, I'm going to be whisking that. And if you're just joining me from replay, hiya, it's a pleasure to have you, and I hope you're deriving some value in this video. In the channel homepage, there are recipes for French buttercream. I actually did a sit-down video where I spoke at length about it, but this is just to give you an additional experience of seeing me do it live. And I have done this live before. It's like the quality of the video wasn't great, so this is just like an enhancement of that video. I'll be linking all those resources in the description box for you to catch up on, so you are empowered, informed, and also with confidence that when you go to undertake this in your kitchen, you feel like you can also achieve great results. Now let's have a look at our eggs again and a feel of it. Yeah, it's gotten cool here. Now, one thing whilst we're at it, most French buttercreams won't add sugar, right? For me, I add an extra amount of sugar here. That's about 50 grams of icing sugar. It's neither here nor there. You can eliminate it. But I find that icing sugar in here, because these buttercreams can be great, and they are, But because of the amount of butter that is added to the eggs, it can awfully be a little bit too buttery. So I find that eggs enhance, icing sugar enhances the mouthfeel and taste by balancing out the buttery mouthfeel of it. Because when you reduce the amount of butter, then you're not going to have a very stable or solid, like stable buttercream. So it's almost like 3 parts of butter to the quantity of sugar and eggs here. That's a lot of butter. So I tend to add a bit of icing sugar, and this is just 50 grams. Depending on what I want to achieve, I can increase this icing sugar or reduce it. In fact, in certain recipes, quantities, I've increased the sugar to about 150 grams, and that is okay. But French buttercream is on the sweeter side. So especially if for the method that I have applied here, because originally it is made with a sugar syrup, it is not too sweet. But when you apply the method I have here, it becomes a little bit on the sweet side, not as sweet as American buttercream, but it is on the sweet side. So how I solve that sweetness problem is adding a touch of salt to cancel out the sweetness, maintain balance, and give you a great mouthfeel. So this is probably a good time to add the sugar and then whisk that together. At this point, I probably will put in a pinch of salt, but you can also swap parts of the butter to parts. This is about 950 grams of butter to 350 grams of sugar and 350 grams of egg. So that is a lot of butter here. So I've just added the sugar and a pinch of salt, but you can reduce the butter altogether to adding salted butter. I find that when I've employed salted butter, you lose control of the sugar. So I'm just going to whisk that until the icing sugar blends in, and then we're going to whilst that is going, it's important to note that the um, mixer bowl is cooler now. So it's about time we can add our butter. So I'm going to add the butter a little bit at a time. And adding the butter a bit at a time allows it to settle into the mixture. And this is about 950 grams of butter. And I'm just adding the butter slowly, a bit at a time. And as I'm adding it, if you were looking into the bowl with me, you will see that the consistency is changing. And as it's changing and it's firming up, I am increasing the speed also. And as the butter is increasing, you can begin to feel the tension. But at this point, what I'm also going to add is some vanilla. So I'm just going to increase the speed a little bit. But before we do that, I'm just going to scrape the sides of the butter, the bowl, so that the butter gets in the bowl properly. So we've gone from the ribbon looking egg sort of solution, if you like, egg syrup, to just this. This is great. I like French buttercream. It is very, it absorbs flavor very well. It tastes great. It is very rich, but it's not eggy at all. For those of you who may have questions about what it tastes like because it's egg based, it's not eggy at all. You can hardly tell it's an egg based. It doubles between heavy cream, but it has body to it. You know, heavy cream when it's whipped can be light, but this has some body and texture to it, but it's also light tasting. So at this point, we need it to whisk completely till the batter kind of changes form and gets lighter. So it's probably going to increase a little bit in volume, but otherwise what we are trying to do here is lighten the batter by whipping more air into this. But just so you know, no matter how nice this buttercream is, it is just not stable. So my aim for making this French buttercream is not to use it for covering cakes. It also has a downside of being too yellow. Okay, so unless you were coloring it into any deeper colors, it won't lighten up without you affecting mouthfeel. So I only make French buttercream for filling into cakes. It transitions well into a chocolate buttercream, but that's a whole process I have already spoken about and created a tutorial on. I'll leave the links in the description box for you. But we need this to whip up till it is light. So give it about 5 to 6 minutes and perhaps we'll be done. Thank you, Rihanna. Rihanna, I am making French buttercream. I'm going to move this to the side and I am going to wipe up. Rihanna, I am making French buttercream, which I have made from cooking eggs over a double boiler and whisk enough before adding the butter. So what you are seeing here is the butter in the egg mixture that I am whisking. But if you're in the chat or you're just joining us, there are 15 people already in the chat. There are 15 of you in the chat. So do make sure you like the video. We have only 7 likes, my dears. Please consider subscribing. Hit the like button and also turn on your notifications because we do quite a lot of lives on here. This is our second one today. The first live was about an hour earlier, right? So we have a stream where I made some Swiss meringue buttercream. Thank you, Rihanna. Yes, French buttercream is delicious, but it's not stable. Are you a baker and where are you joining us from? I am baking from my UK-based home kitchen. And if it's your first time, lovely to meet you. How do you do? Thank you, Miss T. Miss T, thank you. Miss T came here with the sauce for raw. Miss T, thank you. Thank you for being here with us. If I'm rubbing my hands, it's because I have too much sugar and butter on my hands. But oh, if you're new here, we had a stream yesterday and I discussed my baking journey, how I became a baker. So if you want to hear some parts of that story, you might just want to go back and watch that. You will see how I went from a whole different dream to what I am doing today. But I won't give it up for anything, and I thank you for being here and supporting my dream and indulging me in my passions. It's a pleasure to have you. But if you're in the stream, where are you from? And are you a baker? Misty, I know, right? I know. Thank you, though. You literally came in. I was like, I don't know how to react because sometimes you don't know if they're joking, they're being sarcastic, or they're just being plain rude. I just don't know. And I don't want to kind of go on a wrong foot. That's not where I come from. Like, I almost want to see the good in everything. So I looked at him like, what did he mean? And you can see Brendan was saying he's making jokes. And then you came in and you shut the whole thing down. Thank you. But which mixer have you bought? Do you mind sharing? I'm curious. And are you just starting? And what led you into baking? Just curious. Miss T, if there is anything we can help you with over here, come on, ask the questions away, and I'll do my best to answer them. What are the problems you are having, and what help do you need? You must be excited about your first mixer, though. Right. Now the eggs have been beaten for a while. The eggs and buttermilk have been beaten for a while. So I think at this point, if we can count 5 minutes since we started, then our buttercream is done. The salt is great. The balance of the salt and the sweetness and the creamy nature of this buttercream just makes it amazing. Well, that is and the flavor of the vanilla. Anyway, let me just give you a quick note about the vanilla. This is not a vanilla itself. It's a vanilla blend. So when you look at the ingredient listing, it's not pure vanilla. But I remember when I first bought it, I was up in arms about it. And then I used it and I realized that it is appropriate for certain recipes. For instance, when I've added it to my salted caramel, my chocolate buttercream, it's it gives you a very nice flavor to it, but I don't use it for my, say, vanilla cake. It has an aftertaste that I don't like very much for a vanilla cake, because when you're having a vanilla cake, you want to make sure that your vanilla is right over there. So for that, I go for the Costco one, the pure vanilla extract here. But with the Costco one also, say if I was having a client who, due to religious reasons, can't have alcohol laced products, then I have to consider a vanilla bean or the paste option. So there are different things for different outcomes for you here. So Rihanna. Rihanna. So, Rihanna, do you bake? So, yeah, that's some information about the vanilla there for you, just in case you want to know. There are a few brands out there. The Mills, is it Nielsen Massey? It's a good brand, but it's expensive. Don't tell them, just in case they want to come and sponsor us over here. But then again, I think, yes, look, what I don't use, I will not recommend for you. Okay, I will not tell you this works, because I find Nielsen Massey a little bit expensive. You know, for the little bottle for, is it $6.99? Who's bought some pure vanilla and shares my feelings about how expensive vanilla is, right? Next time anybody tells me how expensive cake is, I would just send them to go buy vanilla, just one ingredient, and then we'll see what they have to say for themselves. Yeah. Human. Thank you, Misty. You know what? Uh, this is what I want to say. I've been so blessed with such a community of people who are so supportive. In fact, maybe I'll take my words back in the future, because we all want to grow on this channel, don't I? I do. I do. We are actually headed to 5K. We are a little over 4.5K at the moment, and we're headed to 5K. I'm such a small channel, but for every person in the chat or subscribe to the channel, I want you to know I appreciate you. And you are not small for me at all, but the hope is to grow. But even with that intention, I must say, I really appreciate how positive all of you have been. From Amanda, who nominated herself as our moderator, even in the midst of her own commitments in life, responsibilities, to Delaney. Look, we are a positive bunch here. So, Miss T, thank you for being here. Thank you for standing up to for me in the chat, because sometimes even as a content creator, even if you do feel a certain way, you have to mitigate and correct that, because you don't want to show up in the world fighting everybody. Some days you just have to let it be. Okay, so I appreciate sometimes someone covering you over there, so thank you so much for that. I was asking about, hey, Latina forever, hey, and Rihanna, do you bake? Chocolate. Rihanna likes the chocolate. Rihanna is trying to learn about pastries, and my favorite recipe is the chocolate cake. Oh my God, a good chocolate cake. But chocolate is not my favorite cake to eat, but I like a good chocolate cake, dense with a good buttercream. My French chocolate buttercream is like, oh, God. Let me not start salivating about what I want to eat, okay? I haven't even had breakfast, my people, okay? Latina forever, you're welcome to the stream. And there is Misty. Misty, I was asking, you've picked yourself a new mixer, but what are some of the problems you're looking to solve with your baking, and what issues are you having? Because if I remember that, maybe in some subsequent live sessions, I can discuss how you can things can improve for you. Wafer. Oh, okay, bread. You know what? I don't know anything about bread. So you and I may be the same. If you check, actually, I have two videos on this channel where I review this mixer, and I review a beginner entry level mixer, the Okma. Those are two mixers that I bought with my own money, and I review them. This is a great mixer. It is not super expensive, but it's not like affordable, like say your £100 mixer. This I bought on AO.com during a Black Friday sale, I believe, for 199. So that was £200, but it's money well spent. It's a great mixer. I'm not recommending a mixer for you to pick up. I'm driving a point here. Bear with me. If you check those two videos, you will see that the tutorial itself and the review is very comprehensive. It covered some aspects of a mixer review that I couldn't even find on the channel, on the platform, because I had to watch tutorials to inform myself to buy the mixer. And whilst most people raved about it, they didn't cover the mixer review in a way that would have informed a potential buyer. So I did the video covering all those aspects. So what I did in the video, I took my time to utilize each attachment, from the paddle to the whisk to the hook. In the video, you'll find that I was honest to say I didn't know anything about bread. And in fact, in my attempt to derive a pizza recipe, I had some difficulties. It turned out great, but I was also honest in that video. So I say that to say you can check that video out and see how my bread making skills, because I could hardly pull off a pizza dough. So I could be talking all about this French buttercream here, and I'm rubbish at bread. You win some, you lose some. I say that as a measure of reassurance to say we all start from somewhere. So if you're looking to start baking cake, start on this channel. Not because I think my channel is the best. No, it's because I, as a content creator, started on this channel where most content creators here, some of the what do you call it, some of the professionals on here were the ones who assisted me with the information. So I tell you what, check Food 52. I'm speaking to Misty. If you're Misty and Rihanna, besides being here with me, right, check Food 52. Food 52, Erin Jean McDowell. She is a fantastic teacher. If you think you're having fun here with the information we're having, go find Erin. Her name is Erin Jean McDowell. She's an American baker and pastry chef who brings the teaching of baking in a way that I still enjoy her content today. So Erin Jean McDowell. Oh, Rihanna is leaving. Oh, Rihanna. Okay, Rihanna, come back in future. But this information is for both and Rhiannon and Miss T. So Erin Jean McDowell, Claire Saffis. Is it Claire Saffis? She's also a baker. You would find her on is it New York Cooking Channel? I can't remember. I'll leave the information in the description box for you. It's the dessert person, she's called Claire Saffis, I think her name is. I know she's Claire. I can't remember. I can't pronounce her second name, but she wrote a book. She's called The Dessert Person. Amazing teacher and amazing pastry chef. I love her teaching. So if you are looking to, okay, so Rhiannon, this is information for you. So take quick notes, because when I go back later, I cut the stream down to make for a playback watcher. Okay, so you might miss some of this information, but check out Erin Jean McDowell from Food 52, Claire Saffis, the dessert person, and check Sugarology. She's a science-based baker. She's a microbiologist and a scientist, and she brings that experience to baking, and she explains. So this process we've just undertaken here, she would have been that person to tell you what elements in the eggs is what, the names of the emulsifiers, the scientific process. She's amazing. The gimmicks are not in her process. She brings you real understandable information, because you will find that on this channel, one of our values proposition to you is that we bring you information with intention. I try to make my videos informative with clear intention and objectives about it. And one of the things I encourage is that whether you're a beginner, advanced, or pro alike, by the time you get to being a professional, you have understanding of the processes even in your sleep. But as a beginner, it's important to understand recipes, the ingredient selection, how they interact. You don't have to be a scientist. You just have to have an understanding of how things work. Because if you haven't had a baking problem yet as a beginner, trust me, you will have one. Buttercream will melt one hot afternoon when you bake the cake. Your recipe won't work out at some point, and you think, I've been working with this recipe for 10 years. Why is it not adding up today? Because the science of baking has its own life, one way or another. I tell you what, a baker recently contacted me, this lovely lady, and she's literally beside herself. What's the problem, you ask me? Her chocolate cake that she relies on is not working. And it's not like she is a beginner. She is sort of a mid-level, not advanced pro, but she's been baking. She's like a homemaker. So she knows about baking, and suddenly the recipe that she works with, has worked with for a while, suddenly will not come together. She says it bakes dense. And guess what? I looked at the recipe. I thought, just so that I can reassure her with accurate information. I kind of thought I sort of thought where the problem was, but I wanted to reassure her. So you know what I did? I took her recipe. I went shopping for her exact ingredients, and I baked the cake. And guess what happened? We found out my cake came out great. I looked at the ingredient listing. I told her to check her ingredients again. And guess what we found? Her baking soda was off. But if I had just told her to go and look at her baking soda, she would be like, really? But you see, I had to undertake the process to know. But I already kind of suspected what the issue was. And as soon as I got in touch with her to tell her that my stuff came out all right, we checked her ingredients. She's like, oh, the baking soda it has expired. So my point is, if I hadn't helped her to kind of figure out that her baking soda had expired, she'd be out here losing her mind about this recipe. And if I didn't have the understanding of how ingredients affect anything, how was I going to help her? So as beginners, it's always all, you will never go wrong if you take the time to understand your own recipe. When you start, you will have to pick other people's recipes. There's nothing bad about it. You might even have to buy other people's recipe. Look, there's nothing bad about it. Go for it. My point is, the ones you will end up picking online or buying has been developed for a specific task. So it will work for you as long as you stick with it. But if a problem arises, how are you going to solve it? So my encouragement will be, take your time to understand your recipe processes and the science around it. And the recommendations I have given you should help. Perhaps stick along long enough to see how we get on over here. And maybe you might be of some use to somebody by also recommending these channels to other people because of your own experience. But in the meantime, Miss T, I hope this information is of some use to you. With that said, let's go back to our French buttercream. I hope we are okay over there. Our buttercream is done now. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna move the mixer out of the way and get the mixer bowl out. Oh, that's well, I nearly created a problem here, but luckily it's not as bad. And we are going to because I am not covering a cake with this, I wasn't so concerned about smoothing it out completely. Okay, so there we have it, and I am just going to move the buttercream in this bowl. And if you haven't already seen it, we had made an American buttercream already, which is in an earlier stream. So you want to check that out. But otherwise, this is our French buttercream, which I am going to fill a cake with. And we'll be back with our American buttercream, which is going to pipe over a cake of some sort for another day. But otherwise, French buttercream is all done now.